Hi, I'm Kristen with an E, and this is Talk with Kristen with an E, a place to slow down, be honest without having all the answers, and feel a little less alone together. Let's talk it out. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another day. We have Alexis here, and I'm so excited about this topic, especially because of the take we're taking on it. But before we get into that, let's first say hi to Alexis. Hi, Alexis.
Hello, it's good to be back. I'm excited about this topic too.
So today we are talking about boundaries, and we have talked about boundaries on the podcast before, but it's kind of been in a business sense and kind of how you do it in a professional way. But today we want to talk about more about boundaries in personal life and parenting and kind of what that looks like and how it feels. So to get us started, Alexis, since this was kind of your idea to talk about, why don't you give us a little summary or kind of what gave you the idea about this and kind of just where we can start the conversation.
I have 5 kids, so my life can be crazy, and there is time for myself, but it can be very disjointed, and everybody can be asking me 500 questions. And sometimes it sounds like a lot, but it's really the truth. And so we also homeschool, so I'm not usually away from my family much. I just realized boundaries, like in motherhood, I think can be discussed more than they are. I know that this can be like a taboo topic, like we do everything for our kids and we always have to do that. But the reality is, as I personally know, you will burn out doing that and it's not sustainable. And I always want to preface this by saying, you don't have to do what I do. What works for me is maybe not going to work for you. And you might look at me and say, oh, that's a terrible idea. But there may be things that you do that I would look and say, I wouldn't do that. It's just what works for each family. If there's an emergency, the boundaries go out the window. Like emergencies, if kids truly need something, you don't have your boundaries. If, it's common sense. It's not just a dogmatic, we don't do that, because that's not life.
Right. No, and I think your disclaimer is so important because to add on to that, like, these are just the personal opinions of me and Alexis. And like you said, Alexis, what works for one family may not work for somebody else. And there's no judgment towards anybody else of how they run their households or their families or the personal boundaries they make on themselves. It's just, and I love how you bring up about putting the children first and having time for you, because I feel like there's different avenues that society kind of places, especially on mothers, and I'm sure it's on dads too, although I do think it's a little bit different. We may touch on that later. But for mothers, it's either do everything for your kids, put your children first, put your needs to the side, because now that you have children, it is all about them and doing what's best for them. And then there's the opposite camp that's like, you do you, live your best life, make time for you, self-care is important, your kids will have their whole lives ahead of them. And I think there's truth to both of those. But it is hard to find that balance when you are trying to be there for your kids and take care of them, but still take care of you, because, the age-old saying, if you're, on the plane and the oxygen masks come down, you have to put yours on first because you have to take care of you before you can take care of somebody else. And that's where kind of I feel the struggle is, am I doing enough and spending enough time with my child? And I only have one, not 5, but am I doing enough for him to give him the quality of life that he deserves? Or am I focused more on, I'm doing what I want to do, this is my life, I'm taking care of me? So can you share maybe how you find that balance, or if you found that balance, or just how you go forward with it?
Yeah, so I do think being a parent in general, this isn't just for mothers in this regard, but when you have a kid, you have to give up yourself. Like, that's just the calling, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think that we as humans are better when we're not necessarily serving ourselves all the time and we're taking care of other people, and our focus is on other people rather than me, because that just creates selfishness. Now, obviously, we can go the opposite direction, and you're putting so much into your kid that your kids become, dare I say, selfish, spoiled brats. And that can be a problem too. So there is a balance. And when I had my kids, obviously when they're babies, this is different. It's when they start getting older, like, this is going to sound, people will probably think I'm crazy for this, but my kids go to bed at 8 o'clock. My 16-year-old goes to bed at 8 o'clock. he doesn't have to go to bed. That's not the point. The point is he goes to his room, and at 8 o'clock, I have time to breathe, to just give myself time to, whether I am reading, baking, whatever, I don't have the mental load of somebody interrupting my tasks that I'm doing every 5 minutes, which does happen. And I don't have to think about it. I can just think about the things that I want to focus on. Now, we are moving into a different season in my life, and I'm not sure that I love it, but my teens want to stay up and talk. And we're at a different point where I have little girls that cannot be up. They can't be there for those adult style conversations. I mean, they can, but they're not appropriate in some aspects. And I'm enjoying that time. So 2 days this week, I had teens that were up until 10 o'clock with me, which doesn't sound bad. I mean, a lot of families do that, but for me, it was a stretch. And the next day I'm like, okay, go to bed, 8 o'clock, go to bed. And I don't mean for that to sound like, oh, it's about me, but my brain needs that reset. So that is one example I can think of off the top of my head for sure.
And I think that's a great example too, because you still need to have that time for you. And because it's structured the way it is, there's no surprises. And like everybody knows, at 8 o'clock, I go to my room, whether I'm going to sleep or I'm just going there for activity, quiet time, whatever. That's the rule. And I think doing something like that actually does well because it does provide that structure. And like you said, there's times for it to kind of flex a little bit when it needs to be. And I think that's what makes it so usable. Now, do you spend that, so the 8 o'clock time, is that just you time? Is that you and your husband time? Or is it just whatever happens of the day?
It kind of is whatever happens. And I will be honest, as they've gotten older, sometimes it's 8:30 and I'm like, all right, it's bedtime. And I have to sometimes remind my husband, like, listen, I need, this time for that time. My brain needs that. And because my kids are early risers, they are not kids that sleep. The idea of getting up early before your kids does not work in my house.
I love the idea of having kind of that schedule. Ours isn't so much that, but I do want to go back to something you said earlier too about how, you've got teenagers now and things do change, because I think that's an important point to bring up also in the seasons, because when your children are little, they do need so much more time and you're spending time with them. Like I remember when my son was little, we would spend time together all the time. We were going to the library, we were going to the playground, we would get up early on Sundays and watch like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and just play in the living room. And we were always doing things together, and I didn't need time away from him because I would go to work, and like the time we had was so special. And now that we're in the season where he's nearly 13 and he's spending a lot more time on his own or with his friends, like he's in his room playing video games, or he's in his room talking with his friends and they're playing video games, it's almost harder to get him to do activities with me. And so I've been trying to deal with, as he's kind of using his own boundaries to have his space, his time, is like, well, where do I fit into his life? Like, how am I still spending time with him? So what we do is I do drop off in the morning. So he and I have, 15-minute car rides in the morning where we'll talk about what's going on that day, things that's going on, or we'll listen to music, and I always let him pick the music, which drives my husband crazy. I enjoy it because I get to see what he's into. I get to kind of learn more about his interests, why he likes certain songs or musical artists or whatever. So it sets our time there. And then at night, we always have family dinner together. Now, it's not always at a table. Like, it's not like old school family dinners where we're serving. Everybody gets themselves a plate. We sit in front of the TV and we'll watch like YouTube videos together, like funny ones, or, something that kind of, which I know isn't necessarily family time, but it's like an activity that we all kind of enjoy and can talk about. So we kind of do things like that. So I'm not as structured with you as like the clean bedtime. Like, he has a time where he's supposed to be in bed and should be going to sleep, but it's not as structured as yours.
I love that you guys sit and eat together because that is like a non-negotiable in our house. Granted, my oldest is working now and things are a little different, but it's always kind of been, if you're home, you're at the table eating with us. Also, this is one thing that's changed. Like, we used to have a boundaries of no screens and for my kids. My kids didn't have stuff, but they rely on some stuff for online now. And of course they found YouTube. So
yes,
some of our favorite things to do now is sit and watch like videos with them. I don't always love it. I don't think it's the best thing, but that's where our society is. And I'm not saying that like, oh, you have to follow what society says. But I also want my kids to be literate in what's going on, and they're not like out in the world and just like, what's this, because we do homeschool, so they don't see a lot of everything at school. So I love that you guys do that, because I think that that's just kind of normal, but also you have the boundary of you're doing it together,
Yeah. And I do, you mentioned how, your teens wanted to stay up and talk late. And my son had done that a week or so ago. My husband was in the shower and I was in the living room, I think reading. And he came out and just started talking with me. Like, it wasn't anything formal. Like, he just sat there and he's like, hey, Mom, so this happened at school. And so I put my Kindle down and he had my, 100% undivided attention. And my husband told me later, because, the bathroom is kind of on the other side of the living room, and he's like, I heard you guys talking, so I just didn't come back out. He's like, because I know you need that time, because again, like, my son talks to me and we have a good relationship, but it's still kind of on his time. So a lot of that is just kind of having those boundaries flex. And I do want to also clarify something. I said we eat together every night. We do every night that we're home, like you pointed out. But that's where my time kind of comes in. I do once a month, and I think I've mentioned this before, once a month I go to Sushi Squad with a couple of my girlfriends. Sometimes it's on the weekends, sometimes it's after work one night. And so I'm not with them for dinner because that's my time to go see my girlfriends and kind of catch up. It's a recurring thing. Everybody knows that one night a week I am going to be at Sushi Squad. And there's sometimes other things like that. My friend Karen and I will often go to author events. There's times like that where I'll go for dinner and an author event. I think you have some things like that too. It's not like I'm abandoning my family. They're planned. They're on our family calendar. There's no surprises. But that's kind of where I still have the me time. Do you have things like that too, where there's things that just you do so that you have your own personal or your own social time?
Yeah, and this is where it's kind of been hard, because I haven't always had that. When we lived in Michigan and Anthony was working, like, he would work and had 3 hours total in drive time for a commute. So it was, and if there was snow, it was a lot more. I didn't always have that ability because getting a babysitter it was not worth that. But at the time, in the weekends, I had my photography business. And so that was an outlet as far as that. Nowadays, I kind of just go when I want. And that sounds terrible, but it's not, because my kids are old enough to stay by themselves. And my husband works from home. So the reality is I can come and go as I please. But I have a homeschool moms that I try to do once a month. And so I will miss dinner for that. The other thing, during the afternoon, I go in my room, or I will leave sometimes and I either read. Sometimes I have to take a nap. After teaching 5 kids all of their stuff, my brain just needs like a total reset. So that is kind of a non-negotiable too in my house, is that's my time. And to be honest, sometimes I would rather do that, is just sit and read and work on stuff, whether it's journaling or other things or just taking a nap. Those are kind of those things that I do.
Well, and here's another question. If we can talk about mom guilt for a moment, because I have a lot of thoughts on this, but as you talk about, just kind of going away and taking a nap and doing your activities, do you have mom guilt over that? Or are you like, whatever, this is my time, leave me alone?
I've had to really think about this and think, is this the best use of my time with my kids? Because there is that mom guilt, but for a large part, that is what I do. And it really is. When I was getting up very early, I had to, or I could not. I'd get to 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock and my brain was so foggy. But I'm a better mom for it in the evening, and I can put more into it rather than just like I'm sitting on the couch and I'm not, talking to you guys because I'm just so tired, which sounds ridiculous, but that is kind of, especially when I had nursing babies. When my babies were nursing, there was no way I could get through a day without a nap. So, because my kids are like up every 2 hours when they're babies.
Oh my.
Sometimes I feel guilty because the time that I do spend with them in the morning is we're doing school. It's not like we're playing games. I mean, sometimes we play games for school, but it's very much it's not like a parent-child relationship. It's a teacher-parent-child relationship.
I feel like I struggle with it sometimes, and it may not be in the moment, and sometimes it's after, because my son's 12, almost 13, so I've had 12 years with him. But realistically, I only have less than 6 more if he leaves after high school. And I look at it and I'm like, did I spend enough time with him when he was little? Like, I didn't realize that I wasn't going to have as much time with him now. And am I making the most of the time? So then when there are times when I'm doing things myself, like if I'm sitting on the couch and whether I'm reading or watching a show or doing something and he's in his room playing video games, which again is what he wants to be doing, I struggle with like, well, should I be spending time with him? Should I make him come out here and spend time with him? Like, and that's like, I don't know if it's necessarily guilt or fear or a combination of them, but I really struggle with that because then like at the end of the day when I'm in bed, I'm like, I didn't spend any time with him today, or did I get to talk to him enough? Like, does he know I love him? Does he know I care? All these things that like, I don't know, there were different fears when he was little and they've changed now. And I don't know, like I just feel like I'm not doing enough sometimes. Perimenopause really kind of messes with me. It makes me more irritable than usual. And there are times where he drives me nuts, or he will come out to the living room and he'll just say stupid stuff. And I'm like, just go away. Like, I don't even want to talk to you because this attitude you have or the dumb stuff you're saying. And then I feel like a bad mom. And so it's so bad. But like, I need that time, like my quiet time at night, whether I'm reading or scrolling on my phone, which has been limited, you know, or watching a show with my husband or something, or realistically falling asleep while my husband's watching a show. That's still stuff that I need for me. So I don't know. Help me, Alexis.
I have talked a little bit about my son he'll be 17 in March. We have one more year. And this past summer was incredibly difficult for me. Keep in mind, my kids have always homeschooled, so I've never sent them away. Like, they have been with me all the time. And this past summer, he got a job, so he was working 5 days a week, all day. My other son, who is the middle kid, he was working, and my daughter worked a little bit, but everybody was gone. And my husband and I both remarked how this is weird. We don't like it. In June, I said, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I don't know what to do. I have so much time because school was done at this point and I didn't have all the kids. We weren't doing stuff. We weren't, because they were working or they were off doing things, which is good. Like, these are important things, but I didn't know what to do with myself. Of course, I should have just relaxed because after that, like, it just got crazy. I am struggling with the fact that he is going to be 18 and we already don't see him a lot, and he is also a self-starter for homeschool. He does not want me to teach him. I would. We tried at the beginning, and he's like, I don't want to do this. I just want to do it on my own. And he can do it on his own, so he does. So I think that's very normal, but it doesn't negate the fact that you still need your boundaries. Like, sometimes they just annoy you. Like, my kids are loud. They're so loud. And I'm just like, can you be quiet? Can we please be quiet?
Or he'll always like, he's in like he's in junior high, but still like the middle school thing. Like, he wants to jump and like hit every door frame he goes through. I am constantly hearing his foam basketball bouncing off the hoop in his room over and over and over and over and over. And like, I love that he loves that, but there's sometimes where I'm like, stop. Can we please just stop? Like, please. But yeah, I think you're right. And because I can never go a whole episode without bringing this up, I think social media plays into this too, because how many times are we seeing our peers or other people sharing like, oh, look at all these activities I'm doing with my child. Oh, I love my child so much. And I'm like, should I be doing that with my child? Like, I'm not, doing all these arts and crafts with him. Again, mostly because he won't. And it shouldn't matter what anybody else is doing with their kids. And it shouldn't matter what anybody else thinks about what I'm doing with my kid. But that's still one of those things that plays in the back of my mind of like, am I a bad mom?
So here's the other thing I want to kind of point out. And this kind of goes maybe towards kids' boundaries. My oldest does not like to do like family stuff. He hates it. He does not want to be any part of it. And in the past year or so, we've kind of just picked and choose what we make him do because he is turning into an adult. And I think it's important to voice like, I don't want to do that, because the reality is when they're watching a show that I don't want to watch, I will say, I'm not watching that. I don't want to watch it. And I go do my own thing. So I do think that's important. But, my other 4 kids love to be together and they love to do that kind of stuff, which is funny to me. But my other son is he just loves to be with everybody, and he wants to. Sometimes he doesn't want to if it's really girly. But even the other night we were watching The Parent Trap, and I was like, oh, we need to watch this. And Ari's like, he looks at me like, and I'm like, come on, you'll like it. You will like it. So then he's complaining about it. But you know what? He came and joined us. I would never make my oldest come and do that because he wouldn't want to. But we have been making him watch Beast Games with us because that's our like family show that we're watching.
Yes.
Right? So I sometimes think that it's good to respect their boundaries and not wanting to do that. But also there is a time for family time, and we all just do that because we're a family unit.
No, and I think you make a really good point because there are things we still do as a family, and there are shared activities that we have. So we all, my husband, my son, and I all love antiquing, thrifting, and that's something we'll do. Like we'll take a Saturday and we'll go to all the different thrift stores in the area and find different things, and it's kind of like a thing we do together. So there are things, and I think you're right. It's all about what they want to do too and kind of respecting their boundaries. You know, we're not going to force him to do something, but it is, we do want him to have a say in it and kind of have agency over what we do as a family unit too. Like sometimes we'll all say, you know, what movie are we going to watch as a family? Usually my husband picks because, you know, he's the dad, he controls the remote, whatever. But like on times where we can pick something else, we all get kind of a say in it, and it's really good for that too. So I do think you're right that it's about kind of the picking how much you want to force them and also respecting their boundaries as they become kind of as small adults and allowing them to have that freedom and express themselves.
Yeah. And I think that's important. So it's a delicate balance, and sometimes you get it wrong and sometimes you get it right. Mm-hmm. So I have a question. Are you, in your family, do you limit the amount of activities that your son does?
So we only have one child, and this was one of the reasons why we only chose to have one child, because even before I got pregnant, I had friends that had children, multiple children, and would be like, oh, we've got to take Johnny to soccer, and Mary has to go to ballet, and how are we going to be in both of them? And then they have swimming lessons, and I'm like, this is exhausting. Like, how do you have a life if you're just carting your kids around everywhere? So I was like, that's it. We're going to have just one child, because I never want to say no to him. And I felt like if he had siblings, it would be like, oh, you can't do that because your sister's doing this, or you can't do that because your brother's doing that. Because if we did have more, that is what we would do. Like there would have to be limits, both financially, time, all the things. So because we only have one, he's pretty much free to do whatever he wants with activities wise. In the past, like when he was younger, things didn't really overlap. Like he would do soccer in the spring and fall, he would do basketball in the winter, and then summers were basically off. Now that he's gotten into more organized sports, he is doing a few more things. He's on his quiz bowl team at school. He's in dance. He's been dancing. I want to say this is maybe his 6th year of dance now. So he's in a couple dance classes. And now this spring, he's going to be trying out flag football and doing track. This is going to be our heaviest time ever, but we're going to try it out because he is getting older. And if you listen to my episode about resilience, what he really wanted to do was make the basketball team, and he didn't. So because he'd had kind of all his eggs in that one basket and it didn't work out, we're at a point now where he's kind of trying a couple other things. Like, okay, he's not going to be a basketball player. What can he do? So that's kind of where we do that. And right now, everything kind of has worked out. Everything's on specific days. So we still have days that are free. Like Quiz Bowl and Dance are both on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So now I think you do limit activities for your kids, right?
So I love that they kind of get two different perspectives because we have a big family. But for the majority of America and people listening, 2 kids is probably like your average. 4 kids is pushing it. 5 kids is a lot of kids.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
Hey, I walked in and I got double when I had my twins.
That's for 4.
No, really? I wanted 6, but my pregnancies are not great. So that's a whole nother topic. But we do. But part of ours, first of all, is financially. Because we've chosen to homeschool, we have typically been a one-income family. Now, I've done other stuff, but it's not enough to provide that. Our oldest has never wanted to do sports. Like, we tried to get him to do basketball and stuff. He never wanted to do it. So we didn't really. But then my daughter came along, and she wanted to do soccer. And at the time, my twins were like 6 or 7 months. And I just remember trying to cart everybody to soccer, and I couldn't do it. I finally had to be like, I can't do this. And my husband had to do it because it was just so much. We don't eat out a lot because 5 kids. So always just trying to keep everything going in that. So we do now kind of limit what they do. They don't have a limit typically on youth group activities. So there's always a lot of youth group activities and that takes up Sunday night, Wednesday night. The youngest four do Taekwondo. And they probably could do other stuff, but we've also added choir on Thursdays, which is good. That's like their school stuff. It's not, that is more school. It's not an extracurricular activity in my mind because they're doing their music. It's their music credits. So we have that, but Taekwondo can get to be a lot. I mean, they have been practicing for a tournament and we are all tired because they have had 4 practices a week. And
yeah, it's a lot.
But here's where my boundary comes in. They can do that. My husband is, as long as my husband's willing to take them and he likes to drive and run. I am not that person. So I don't. In fact, he takes them to Taekwondo practice, but when he can't, we've had many times, I take them, or if he's busy doing other stuff. And I always show up for their belt tests and things like that. So it's not that I'm not there, but I personally cannot be gone all the time because I have a home to run. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's my job. And so I have to be here to get my job done, or you're not going to have laundry and you're not going to have like food. And yes, they could do it, but also they have school, which takes up a lot of time and things like that. So yeah, I think we haven't delved too much into it because there hasn't been a lot of other stuff that they want to try. So I don't know. We're kind of at that. We haven't necessarily made it, but financially probably it would be because everything is so expensive.
Oh, yeah. And then every activity, you need cleats, you need jerseys, you need all this stuff.
I have to say that the reason that we have done Taekwondo for years is it's $25 a month per kid for 2 practices a week. That's like, it just can't be beat.
That's really
it's
good.
So good. And I think we pay for some of it with our taxes because it's at a rec center, but honestly, I don't care. But like Armor, they've been saving for that themselves. And they had Armor available to them through the rec center that they could use, but they all want their own Armor. Mm-hmm. So they have been saving, but I did spend money on Armor this week for their tournament.
That's fine.
It's close to like $400.
And I think this was a good way to bring up, because, when we first started talking, I was thinking boundaries as kind of like the time-bound ones, like you talked about, like the 8 o'clock bedtime, or like I talked about having the my time kind of thing. But I think you're right. There's also the financial boundaries and the child's personal boundaries. Like there's a lot of different boundaries that kind of go into functioning in a healthy way so that everybody gets what they need. So I appreciate how we've been able to pull all that out. Yeah, are there any other boundaries?
It's just interesting how the dynamics in each family, like, we didn't necessarily think about activities. So I think it's so interesting. Probably in hindsight, I might have. We might have stopped earlier, but maybe not.
Oh, you wouldn't have.
I always wanted a lot of kids, so I don't know that we would have. But I think it's funny. And there are times, I'll be honest, when this past week was crazy. We had dentist appointments, eye appointments, choir, Taekwondo practice. And it was all in 1 week, plus trying to get school done and everything else. And I said, I don't know what I was thinking having this many kids because it's a lot. Well, we made it. Aww. 3 hours in the car and I'm just so done. Right. They had eye appointments in the morning and then I was in the car for 3 hours and I just said, oh, I'm so done. I'm so ready to be home. I also had to recognize the fact that I was just overwhelmed and I needed to figure out how to deal with that. So that's where boundaries can come in. You just get overwhelmed and you have to think about it.
Well, I think that's when you kind of know where you need to, and you almost need to tag out, and not completely, but just like, hey, I'm realizing that I'm reaching my point and I need to kind of step back and make some time for me. And I think that happens in the professional world or the personal world. There's only so much you have a capacity to take, mentally and emotionally, and that it's more important for you to take that step back and focus on you before, you blow up at a kid or something. So I think it's important that you kind of can sense that about you and kind of know where your limits are.
Yeah, and I think as I've gotten older, I've been able to recognize that more. When you're in the thick of it, it is hard to recognize.
But I do think it's important to make time for yourself. And like I said earlier, I think the mom guilt is still a legit thing, but it's important to know that taking care of you first will help you be a better mom and take care of your kids more. And, kids are resilient and they don't need to be coddled. And it's important for them to have their own space and time and friends and activities. And that's how they're going to learn and grow. And that sometimes we just need to let go a little bit and let them have that space just as they allow us to have our space.
There's no way I'm entertaining my kids at this point. And that sounds terrible, but it's true.
Right. Well, Alexis, in closing, is there any final thought that you would share with our listeners or anything you would want to challenge people as they go forward looking at how they deal with boundaries and parenting or just being a parent in general?
Children are such a blessing, and it's really okay to take time for yourself so you can be the best parent that you can for them. That doesn't mean you have to spend every waking moment coddling their needs and, keeping track of them.
I would agree. Make the time for you, make time for them, and just find something that works for you and your family. All right, Alexis. Well, I appreciate your time. And, I'm sure that you'll be back and we'll talk about more things on here again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending this time with me. I hope this conversation made you feel a little less alone. Take care of yourself, and I'll talk with you soon.